Hey, how's it going? I just want to record this video as a little walkthrough of this Rails application project that I built using Ruby on Rails, the highest level web development framework for Rails. I built it to demonstrate various things like active record associations, nested routes, nested forms, displaying error messages, um, just associating different models and database tables, and third-party authentication and authorization. So I'll just sort of go to the landing page and share my screen here. So here's the landing page, and we'll sign up. So like I said, error messages was an important part of this project. As a user, if you're not doing something correctly, you want the application to communicate to you what it is you need to do. So here's how I accomplish that. Let's say you want to sign up and you don't enter in any information. So we get some nice error messages here, and the affected fields are highlighted. You can see password can't be blank, it's too short, email can't be blank. And I do the same thing for login. You just get a simple email or password invalid. Yeah, when you're building a web application, you want to have a way for a user to sign up and create a new password and whatnot. But if you don't have to keep track of their password, because everybody uses the same password for everything and everybody knows this, one thing you can do is use third-party authentication. Here you can see I'm using login with GitHub, and so what that allows us to do is just authenticate through a third party so that I don't actually have to store anything. I mean, we have great tools like bcrypt, which I'll talk about later, which apparently Google themselves couldn't crack. So the encryption tools that we have available are great, but if I don't even have to deal with user passwords, then that's ideal. So in order to accomplish that, we have login with GitHub, and I'll show you what that does. It's just going to reroute me to GitHub where you'll sign in, and that's going to reroute me back to the main page. So here's the main page, and yeah, so I work at a Whole Foods and in a meat market, and so I built this to basically be a way to keep track of customer orders and customers because we do a lot of custom orders, and most of the time we just end up writing them down on a piece of paper and it's not the most efficient method. So I built this as a way to demonstrate, I thought that that would be a perfect model for demonstrating the functions and things that are available with Rails. So yeah, so here you can see I'm signed in, and I just rendered a table here with some orders. I've got customer name, item, amount, pickup date, and whether or not it has been completed. So here's another page which shows customer orders that are due today. Let's create a new order. So again, with the error messages, I can show you how that's accomplished here. Says a patron must exist. The item can't be blank, amount can't be blank. And here's a custom error that I built. If you select a date that's in the past, you get an error message that says pickup date can't be in the past. So here's some cool functionality of the new form. You have a drop-down menu to select all the existing patrons. The models in this application are patron, clerk, and orders. So here we're at clerk number 7, and we are in the orders index route. So let's go ahead and create a new order. We're going to select Bernie. Bernie wants some Apple Jacks, and he wants 10 cases. I've already got all of this preloaded. Pick that up tomorrow. Submit. And takes us back to our index and shows you that new order. So here I'll show you the edit order route. So As a programmer, you don't want to repeat yourself. You want to repeat yourself as little as possible or none at all. So one way that this is accomplished in this project is this order form, you can tell, is the same order form as the new order. And I'm just rendering the same form in two different places. So that keeps it less repetitive. And so here we get the same error messages if we try to submit an invalid order, right, and can't be blank. I'm gonna change it to bananas. Why is my caps lock on? So there we go. That's updated to bananas. It's new order, edit order. What else we can do here is go to the patrons route. Here, I've just got this nested under patrons 17. Gives us the customer's information and their orders. You can delete the patron, and that actually deletes their patron and all the orders. So some other options is just to delete single orders. Some things I thought that sort of my first time doing that I thought was fun is, like I was saying, the drop down menu here, and then you got a drop down menu for the complete status. Yeah, so that's essentially all of the functionality of it. Something else that is cool is this form is from here over, you're submitting data for the order table in the database. But here is actually patron information. And so I'll go into a little bit detail about later about how I accomplish creating a patron and an order in the same form, and how I'm able to either create a new patron or find an existing one. But here we'll create a new patron. I think I deleted Bernie, so. And we can check here and see. There's all our existing patrons. Oh gosh. There we go. It doesn't come in pounds. You're gonna get Apple Jacks in cases. And you're gonna pick that up tomorrow. Submit. And so there's the order, and you can see that it actually created the patron, that new patron. And I guess the only other thing I haven't shown is just the logout route, which reroutes back to the landing page. So I'm going to use this little checklist here of these specs to kind of give us some structure as we're going through this. So includes heads, mini, belongs to, mini through. So what that is referring to is the, as I was saying earlier, the active record association. So here, I'll pull up the schema, and I'll have to go find it. It's going to be right there. So here's my different models and their data tables. Each data table here is rendered with its each column in that data table. So see, a clerk has an email and a password digest. In the case that someone signs up not through the third-party authentication and they actually create a new password, this is where the encrypted password is stored using a gem called bcrypt, which I might go into detail about that later. And title, I haven't really implemented that, but later on I think I want to implement a way to sign in as a manager, which would be like an admin. So you could see, you know, you could pull up different clerks and see all of the orders and whatnot. So patron just has name and phone. And here the order table item pickup, which is a data type of dates. I have a complete status, which is a Boolean meaning true or false, default false, and the amount. So back to associations, here's the important stuff. Patron ID, clerk ID. What that does, these are known as foreign keys, which sets up the orders table to be a join table, which joins clerks and patrons. So you can see here, patron has many orders, has many clerks through patrons. Clerk is essentially the same thing, but opposite, has many orders, patrons through orders. And so here's the order active record stuff. See here, it belongs to clerk, belongs to patron. In order to utilize that, this is how we do it. Setting up foreign keys, patron ID, clerk ID. That will implement the, that will put in the ID of the patron or clerk associated with that order in that column. To go into more about the models, you see here I'm inheriting from application record. That gives us tons of methods already built in. And here in clerk and patron, I didn't even build in any other methods. With order, I did build in some custom methods. Complete, basically, instead of rendering true or false, I made this method so it would say yes or no. Here's a custom validation. Pickup is future date. I showed that earlier. This just makes sure that date is after date dot, after date dot today, and builds the error message. So yeah, patron attributes, getting back to how the form creates and creates a new patron or finds an existing patron. That is accomplished right here, patron attributes. See, we're either finding or creating a patron. And to show you the form itself, here is the form. So this is the one single form that is, I'm using, these are variables that are set in the edit route. So here's the edit route and the new route. Here's where I'm displaying error messages. And then here's where I'm rendering the form and setting the variables in the form. So in the form, I'm going to have a variable called order, which is set to this, clerk set to this. And so since we're in new, patron is going to equal patron attributes. And this is for the drop-down menu. This is for where the where it's going to actually post to. So in new, patron is going to equal patron attributes. So we can utilize that patron attributes method and create a new patron or find an existing patron. So in edits, you see patron is equal to order.patron because we know that patron already exists. So we're going to find it utilizing this. And these are the same. And but this is different. This is going to post now to update clerk order URL. So getting back to the models themselves, this is a custom scope method. This is a really cool method of building custom functionality for a class. So as a, I've called it do and set it to a data type of time. And this is the actual query where this question mark is going to equal the variable that you pass in, or the data that you pass in. And to show you this method right here in action, I'll pull up that controller, which is what is rendering this. I don't have anything in there right now, which we can quickly put something in there just to sort of show you how that works. Today, submit today's orders, and there it is. So I accomplished that using that scope method, which I build here, and I utilize it here in the orders today view. This is rendering the table. And see here I have orders for date.today formatted. Same kind of thing. Pickup date formatted. So that's the view for that. So that actual method is right here. This is the today action. And so here's where I'm utilizing that do method. So orders in this view, orders is going to equal orders.do date today. So that's how that works. That was a lot of fun to utilize that. That's a really cool method of utilizing, essentially what those allow you to do is to get information about a particular instance of a class without querying the database. So in the future, if this were to be deployed on a server that's online, it's going to act fast. It's going to be more efficient if it's not, the less it actually has to query the database. So going back to the models themselves, I talked about nested attributes and the associations. Here's our validations. I'm validating that item is there, pickup is there, amount. This gets back to the, so here's the complete. I actually don't use this anymore. I'm going to be hesitant to delete it. That was before I built this pickup is featured. Yeah, so this is basically when I was entering in the status. Now I actually just have a drop-down menu for that. And go into the validations for patron. It's just looking for the name is present and the phone is present, that it is a number, and that it is at least 7 digits long. So here's clerk, has secure password. That gets back to the password digest column in the table. Validating email and that it is unique. This is title. Again, I'm not utilizing that yet, but in the future, here will be the options for the title. I work in a meat market, so I have manager, cutter, and member for just general. Yeah, so password presence, and here's where you get the password confirmation, which I thought was really cool. I wasn't sure how password confirmation was validated, but it's just validated like this in ActiveRecord on Rails anyway. On here where I'm setting the length between 6 and 20 digits. So let's go back to specs. Give us a little bit of direction here. I think I covered that. Reasonable validations, covered that. The scope method, covered that. Covered sign up, log in and log out. Third-party stuff, nested routes and resources. So yeah, I can talk about that. See if it's pulled up here, and it is not. So we'll go find the routes. Here's our routes, and this is how I accomplish the nesting of the routes. So to go back here, you see clerk 7 today. So the today route is nested under clerk 7. So this is clerk 7's orders that are due today. If I just go back to orders here, and everything is authorized. So if I try to render clerk 6, it's going to ask the session, it's going to set the clerk, and I'll show you how I do that later, to the session clerk ID, and the session clerk ID is not 6, it is 7, so it just reroutes me back to clerk 6. Clerk 7. It still says clerk 6, but really it's just rerouted me back because I'm not clerk 6, I'm signed in as clerk 7. So that's how we nest resources right there. Resources just means essentially routes. Here's where I'm just renaming some routes to be more conventional names. The login route is routing to the sessions controller, and the new action log out. Here is how the third-party authentication is working. Essentially, it sends back a URL of auth provider callback, and that is sent to the sessions create. Sessions create being by far the lengthiest action in the entire application. Here it is. So how that works is we're looking for the auth hash, and we're setting it equal to this. So this actually sends you back, this is the actual hash that it sends you back, and the keys in this hash that are important to us is omniauth.auth, info, email. That's where we get our Oauth email, is setting a variable called Oauth email to this, and looking to find that, trying to find that that clerk with their email. If we don't, we just create a new one and we just set a random password. If clerk.save, that's going to make sure it's actual valid. It sets the session ID to clerk ID and redirects us to the clerk path. So if that doesn't work, I just have a little flash message here. Something went wrong. Renders session new. Layout false. I just figured out how to do that today. So that allows me to put a header on every view except for the ones where I put layout false. So like every view is actually just this view right here, and what you have in these files is actually rendered right here. And you see I have this header. Well, I don't want this header on login and sign up. So what I do is I say layout false, and I actually have to render the entire header here. Whereas in, like, say, index, I don't render the actual header, it just render the body. So getting back to where we were here, sessions controller. Yeah, so else, kind of lost track of where we were, honestly. I think, yeah, so if there's no auth hash, basically if they don't do the sign up through GitHub, we are creating a new one right here. Or no, we're finding a new one, and we are authenticating the password. Here we're setting the session ID again. This is where we're actually creating the new one. Again, you see I use my layout false here. So destroy is how you destroy the session. That's just a magic little keyword there that keeps your code nice and dry and simple. Dry meaning do not repeat yourself. Redirect to root path. My root path is just that landing page. This is a cool method, log in and redirect to root. I put that in so I don't have to write this code in multiple places. Here's strong params. Rails only allows you to pass in parameters that have been passed through strong params, which gives you a little bit more security, so someone can't just hack into your database essentially and input information that you haven't okayed. Basically, essentially, this is where you're setting what parameters, what data is allowed in to your database essentially. So what else? Let's go back to specs here. Log out, nested resources, nested routes. So I don't think I went into, yeah, so I didn't go into nested attributes. So when we're creating an order, this is an order, this is a form for an actual patron, whereas this is an order, this is a form for an order. So when we find or create a new patron, that is utilizing clerk round to order. That is utilizing this this method right here. Have to define this this method so that I can, in my orders controller, and the strong parameters, I can actually make patron attributes for that specific order. So self meaning a specific order, an instance of the order class. Self.patron, we get this .patron method because it belongs to patron. Patron find or patron create by the patron attributes that are passed in. So that's how we are in the, I can show the form, I guess, if I can find it. Make sure that in the form. So here's edit. We're rendering the form. We're displaying messages, and then we're rendering the form. Again, we only want to render one single form. And the way we do that is we set variables of the form right here. So in the update form and the edit form are going to be different. So in edit, that's where we are right now, right? Yes, so edit, the patron already exists. So we're setting the patron variable in the form to order.patron that already exists, and we're posting to update. In new, the patron does not exist. Or it can exist, but it also can be creating a new patron. So we set patron to this patron attributes method, which calls that method that I just explained a second ago. Let's go back to spec. I think I pretty much covered everything. Producer form, display validation errors. Did that. So application is pretty dry. I covered that. Limited logic and controllers. I think one way I accomplished that was through the use of helper methods. So we can go into this application controller. This is the main controller that all other controllers inherit from. And you can see I'm setting helper methods here, current clerk, logged in. And so one helper method that I use a lot is set clerk. So I can find the clerk that is logged in and pass that into, for instance, like the form I just showed. And the way I do that is in the orders controller, I say before action, set clerk. And so before each of these actions, I'm going to have access to the variable at clerk, which I can pass to the view, which allows me to access that clerk model in those views. I don't think there's anything left on this. Views and partials, I covered that. Helper methods, logic and controllers. Yeah, so yeah, that pretty much covers everything. This project was a lot of fun. I love learning Rails. It's just such a fast and easy and approachable way of getting an application off the ground and up and running. And this project, I was primarily focused on back-end server-side stuff, models, associations, and whatnot. But one thing that I did learn that I haven't done much of in the past was the CSS. I mean, you can tell here, just the colors and sort of the format of everything looks pretty presentable. I did use a little bit of Bootstrap, but which is just a CSS framework, but I also did some of my own CSS. I mean, I haven't written this much CSS for anything ever. That's the most CSS I've ever put on any project of mine. And it was a lot of fun to actually get everything working and then focus on that part of it. So I think I'm pretty proud of this project, and I hope this video was a good explanation of what it's like to kind of get a Rails application going and off the ground. And thanks for watching.